Okay, I wanted to start by giving you a really brief overview of how these files work. So I set up the templates for you. I've set up the book. You'll notice I've named the files with page numbers. I just did this so you could keep track of it. The actual numbers themselves are in no way tied to the name of the file, but I wanted to get you started and have sort of segments that you could work with. But to go through, so I set up a book, and this book then has all these individual files loaded. From there, it uses this first file with the paragraph and character styles and templates. So if for some reason you decide you don't like something I have or you need something else, my recommendation is to put it in here. And then there's the option with this one, once you've put it in there, to synchronize styles. So all these other documents are tied to this first document, which serves as sort of the master document, if you want to call it that, for pages. If you did need to add more documents or more pages, you could either open this last one, has room for more pages, or you could just do a save as with an existing one, and then you need to hit the plus to actually add the document to the book. But what is the benefit of the book before I actually get to the files? Because I've set up this book, let's say I decide these pages need to move for whatever reason. I can just pull this document down, and let's give it a second to update. And notice it has fixed the pagination because this is the file name. This column here is the page range. So when I move this page 46, it automatically repaginated everything so that it works correctly. So I think that's an important thing to notice, that if you add pages to this document, no matter what the actual file name says, it will automatically repaginate every single item so that you're correct then. So that's a beneficial thing. But I'm going to move this back to the correct place so that I would say try to keep them as close as possible just so you can keep track of things. But if you decide you need like less pages in a document, feel free to change it and as you go. And this is actually in a folder just to show you on my desktop. So I've created this template folder. Don't judge the messy desktop. This is the actual book file that I have open, and then these are all your individual files. So what you'll want to do when you load this to the server, the drive, you're going to want to go ahead and load all of this because everything is contained, and then you probably want to open the book file before opening a specific file. Moving forward, what's in this document? What have I set up to hopefully make your life easier? Let me just dock this really quick. All right, to start with, I'm going to tell you something. My workspace that I work with most often is the typography workspace. I find it has everything I need. I've customized it a bit, so I don't believe links and animation are part of the default, nor maybe our glyphs and text wrap, but it's been a while. My settings just carry through from versions. How do you get to this? So you by default probably are in Essentials, which looks like this. Great, works fine. It's hard while you're learning to know where things are. Even myself, having done this for a long time, there's still moments where I'm like, where did they hide this? So my recommendation for all my tutorials that I've made for students, I work with typography and InDesign. It's better set for what I'm trying to do with this book file. So you might not see all of these here, but you'll definitely see at least most of them there, the ones that are most important. So this file, I've set up a bunch of master pages by default because it sounded like you're going to go with the black page. I use the black template on everything. This is a single page, but the way it works, it's going to show you the other sort of half of the page. It won't actually print into the document. It's not something that's actually part of this page. It's just a quirk of InDesign. So when I go to the pages, I'll see this document has pages 1 through 15, as we can see through the name. And then I have a variety of master pages I built for you. These master pages can be applied to any of these. Like right now, everything has A, just that was the default. I left it alone. However, just to show you, if you want to go into the master page, A, to see how it's set up, or B, you need to make a change for some reason, you can go ahead and double click up here. and that'll take you in the master page. The master page is always a 2-page spread. Okay, always a 2-page spread. And then you can come down here if you're not sure where you are. Always at the bottom, this will tell you what page you're on, because a lot of times my students, they go into the master page and then they forget and they put content on there that then goes on every single page. Again, this is the document, the 1 through 15, that's tied to the other documents and pulling styles from here. So if you need to make a change and you want to update it across all the documents, this is the place to do it. So I did a black background with the standard grid I sort of had set up. It's 4 columns across and 6 rows down. We have 2 pages. I use their guides, and those are in here. I've actually put, just to show you, layers. So I put their defaults that they have on this non-printing layer. That can be deleted before you send it to print. I even put in the yellow area they noted. I will tell you, I did make the internal gutter a little larger than their specification. I did this because I looked even back at my yearbooks and text kept getting caught into the gutter, and I'm not a fan of that, so I would like it to look better. But there's 2 layers. This is the main layer of content. Once things are in the master page, they won't by default be editable on other pages. But there are ways you can overcome that, and I'll show you how to do that in a separate video. So there's a black version, there's a white version. Again, the white, you're gonna see the yellow. This does not print. This is just here for reference. The yellow area is the bleed. So my understanding from their file is this line here at the opening, that's the edge of the page, with the exception of the center, because the center is obviously, this is the part that goes into the book the way they print. If you've never seen printing, they actually print 4 pages at once. So a whole spread gets printed at once. So anything that's in the yellow is things that just like the color you want, anything you want to go to the edge of the page needs to actually go past, have a bleed that goes into the yellow space. But all the main content should stay inside the pink and purple lines. I will note at the bottom, this is their like safe space to keep content within. So I raised your margin above it so that I could put in the page numbers and the footers, so that you didn't have to worry that this content was outside the safe zone, but also you didn't have to contend with, you know, balancing against this piece. So that's in place for you. I did a regular underclassmen photo space, and I can show you how to lay those out in a grid in a separate video, with the black sides that we talked about. Again, any of this is changeable at any point. And even though this doesn't match this grid exactly, this matches the previous page's grid, so it'll look similar across pages. I used senior photos. I saw that there was a 3x3 grid. It looked like you were running out of room though for the names on the side. They were getting crushed a little bit, and some were getting like tightened and condensed. So I wanted to give you more. This is still obviously far bigger than this one. But I wanted to give you more space for the names, and I'll show you paragraph and character styles for those names, but this will take up a little, and we can play with it if this isn't what you want, but this worked better to me looking at what you had in the existing document, what made the most sense. And then I also set up some generic ads, both on a white background, and I have a version on black, just to show you how to use the grid to consistently size your ads. I realize you may be getting files from people and it may or may not work well, but I would try to use the grid as much as you can for the ads. And I'll show you how, once you apply this, you can take out this text. Obviously, you don't want to keep eighth of page, half page, quarter page ad, but it actually, this grid nicely divides up, so you don't have to think that hard to get things. And you could obviously look at this box and see what the sizes are. It's not a perfect number, but it gives you a ballpark of what size the ad should be to tell someone. You could have also done the eighth page, like long and skinny. Basically, they're getting the equivalent of 3 of the grid boxes. But I figured this probably made more sense in the long run for most people. But that you have that option both in white and black, and you can place that. Okay, so coming back out to the document, because we don't want to add content to master pages. The only things that should be master pages are things you want to appear consistently on pages, like the grid, the header, the footer, um, or anything like that. And I've already put in the page number situation for you, so you don't need to. Just to briefly go back, I should have mentioned it while I'm here. You'll notice you'll see an A, or on this one a B. All I did to put in the page numbers, just to show you if you were going to do it yourself, I came up here to type, insert special character, markers, current page number. And what it does is it puts in whatever the letter the master page is. So right now we're on B, it put in a B. It just allows us to have, like, there's a little piece of code basically attached to it that helps automatically do the pagination so you don't have to, which is nice. But that's how I put it in, just for reference. But I was trying to make this as much plug and play for you as humanly possible. All right, back to this page, and I know I'm on the actual page because I can see down here page 1. This is another place that you can use to jump where you need to jump in a document, or you can use the pages panel here. Again, I've set this up to match their items. You want to keep all your content inside the purple and pink lines here. These are your column guides that I worked with in the previous project, so to look at that, just to see how that played out, this one's a little easier to see. So there are grid lines. Obviously, I've aligned everything here with the grid as much as possible. Okay, so you'll be doing something similar with this. But all of the documents, all the different files, all have this setup in them. By default, they're all black, but you can start going in and applying. So if you want to see real quick how you would apply it, let's say this page is actually a student page. I'm going to go ahead and drag the C down, same here, and then it will update, and now I have the C master page. Again, yellow does not print. I've set that as a non-printing layer. We also could delete the layer before you send it to press. It's just in there so that you know where the bleeds are and that everything's accounted for. Their template did not have it as non-printing, but I set it up as non-printing because I just want to make sure you know exactly what's going on in the page. Anyway, so this, I've applied this master. I can always go back if I'm like, no, that's not right. It's really easy, and it will automatically update. If you have two different masters between pages, you'll notice it was doing kind of having both, but that's fine. They also, if you had to fix the grid or something, if you update that, there's an option to check that will allow it to automatically update all your pages and fix the grid, which is nice. From here, besides these master pages, I also set up paragraph and character styles. So what are paragraph and character styles? Just to show you really quick, I'm just going to type some stuff. And then let me just quickly put in some lorem ipsum for my purposes. So the way these work is I just highlight the text. I come over here, I find the one I need. So this is my heading, and I'm going to ultimately have it want it white because this is black. So I made a white and black version because I made white and black pages. Obviously, if your page background is black, you want to use the white type. If your page background is white, you want to use the black type. So because right now the sort of side space is white, I'm going to just use the black so you can see what I'm doing. And I go ahead and click this, and I've sort of preset it. You may have to adjust it slightly depending on what you want to do with this. And then I've also set, so we have body text here, and I put with drop cap and without, because for example, if we do with drop cap, it will do it to every paragraph. So what I would recommend doing is just doing regular, and then going back to the paragraph you want the drop cap, and then setting the drop cap. if you want to use the drop cap. But I've set this is set to Chivo regular 10 point. I gave it a little extra leading because I think it looks nice. I've also put in place, for example, caption, wherever that is, here we go. So that's slightly smaller because captions are usually smaller than the main text. I have also put in place, just to show you, I did a subhead that's a little bit larger. Also Chivo, it has a little bit of spacing built in so that if we had, I don't know if you need a subhead, but just to allow for that. Additionally, I put in a small headline which uses this. I was kind of basing this off of what I did here, that you needed a slightly smaller one, so that's available. And this is a tiny bit bigger than what I set the preset to, but you could use this to start with, and if you need to make it smaller or bigger or tweak it, but at least it gets you closer to what you want and closer to consistency. I also built in underclassmen names because those needed to be smaller given their space, kind of using what's already in the file, but also making my own judgment based on some of them get squashed. And then I did the same thing with senior names. Might have forgotten to do senior white, but we'll have that in there for you. But we have what I guesstimated you'd need. Again, if you want to add something, I'll send you a separate video on paragraph and character styles that'll really walk you through how to do that. But basically all this is in here, so you just place the text or type the text. I would recommend placing, and I'll send you a video on how to do that. But you also could draw a text box, copy paste, that's fine. You can do that too. Those are all options for you, but that's all again built in here. I also, let me put that back real quick. Character styles on the caption, if you did decide you want part of it bold, so if this is caption text right now. So let's say I have that as caption, okay, and I decide like I'm using the right left and I want that bold. I can come over here to character styles and just make that one word I highlighted bold and use that character style. It only did it from captions because I didn't see anything else that it looked like you had any variability to it. But if again you need additional things, we can always update this file and then update your styles. That's the nice part about this. So some things to look for from InDesign standpoint. Where am I going for what? For those of you who've used Illustrator, very similar. The direct selection tools work the same. The black selection tool allows you to move overall objects. The white one allows you to edit individual points or pieces. We have a text tool. Unlike Illustrator where you can just click on screen and start typing, InDesign you do need to type and make a column space in order to put text in. So whether you copy paste it in or you have existing documents and you place it, which is what I would recommend, but it's up to you. And then you'll be able to go ahead and type whatever you need to type in here. If you need to make shapes at all, we can go ahead and do that. We have the same as Illustrator, like rectangle, ellipse, which makes circles, as well as ellipses and polygons. No star tool in here though. But I don't know how much you're gonna need to do that. That's all like basic things. Coming over here, you've noticed I've been using the pages panel, and really like that's the main way I edit and work with pages to get where I want, and I can just minimize it as I need to. There's a layers panel. We're sticking with this layer 2. Again, this layer, I've locked it. It's the one that has the non-printing items that I don't need. I mean, no guides print no matter what, but like the yellow on the pages where you can see it. So leave it locked. Just put all your content in layer 2, or if you really want to make a new layer that is all your content, unlike Photoshop, even people in Illustrator tend to make a ton of layers. I really don't recommend 5,000 layers. In InDesign, it'll make your life unnecessarily hard. So just keep that in mind. Then there's swatches. I've added the colors. I know you said you don't want to use the orange, but I still put it in here just in case. I've also added a special black swatch. So when you're printing like large areas of black, you usually use what's called printer's black, which is just 100% of all four colors. It makes a richer black, so the black, if you have large spaces with black and you just use the black color at 100%, it tends to look gray when you print it. Like, black's great, the regular black swatch is great for just like words and things like that, but when you have large areas, you really want to use this printer's black. So the black that I've already put in is set with this printer's black, but I just wanted to make sure you know why there's this black swatch and that black swatch. This one is if you are doing large areas like this, use this black, the printer's black. Or if you're just using text, like all the text I set up that says dash black actually uses this black. Obviously, paper is not actually white. They will most likely be printing this on white because most things get printed on some version of white. So paper is just indicated as white, but if you were printing on, like, let's say red paper, actually the white color swatch would be misleading. Basically, paper is, we're not printing any color there, we're just leaving the paper as is. These are the other default swatches that come with all InDesign files. I left it alone for right now because I think they're useful to know that they're there. We don't need to mess with them, but these are your actual swatches from the values you gave me. Glyphs panel is useful sometimes. It's useful like with shoreline, there's a lot of those lines built in. So just to show you really quick here, with the script. So if you can't remember like where special characters are, this is helpful because it'll show you where those lines and other things are that you can work with. Or if you were pulling up even crazier, like zap dingbats or web dings, things like that. Let me find my versions of those. So like wingdings, and you can't remember all the little icons that are in there, the glyphs panel is really helpful for that. Text wrap is how we apply things like what I did up here where we wrapped around the text, as well as up here. And we can talk more about that separately, but just to know that it's there. Stroke is pretty straightforward. It allows you to edit any lines you draw. CC libraries, yours obviously won't look like this. This is pulling from my personal library and everything I've added over my time. Gradient allows you to create gradients. I don't see that you'll probably need that from what you showed me for design. Story, the only reason I would use it is if I have a quote and I want to hang my quotes properly, I would click the optical margin alignment. Something to keep in mind, because quotes shouldn't be lined up directly with the text. They're actually set over a little bit, so visually they look more aligned. You won't get into hyperlinks or effects. Hyperlinks are if you went into web, like for example in my syllabus there's like resources on campus that I have, so I do the hyperlink, so when the student opens the PDF they can actually link directly to that service. Paragraph does things like alignment, also space after, the drop cap. If you want to turn off hyphenation, it's there. Paragraph styles are all the styles I've set up for you. Character allows you to edit and change whatever font you're going to use. So I could go back to Chivo because I really wouldn't type in Wingdings. Change both the size and the leading. And then we can get into, we don't want to ever stretch. These two should always be 100%. But we can get into, like especially up here if we're using type tools, like all caps, things like that, if we want to play with it. Character styles, again, I've set up a couple. Those are applied usually individually to words. The way I normally explain it to students about the difference between paragraph and character styles. Paragraph styles is I've formatted the text one way. Character styles then is like the equivalent, you have a vocabulary word in your textbook that you then use the character style to just change that one word without disrupting the paragraph. Align allows you to align objects, whether to the page, whether to each other. Same with distribute. Pathfinder works like pretty much like it does in Illustrator. For right now, I would say you probably don't need that either. The other thing that'll be important is the links panel. This will be a good way to monitor everything. So we never copy and paste images in. To show you a links panel with something in this. So this gives me every file that is in here, and then it also shows me, like, I moved these after I made this, so it's telling me the link's been disrupted. I can come down here and select the relink and find my image. I basically was lazy the one day and had it on the desktop, and then I've moved it. Since then, I don't know where I put it. Anyway, so yeah, that I could relink it that way. If you see a yellow triangle, it just means you need to update the link. Like maybe you changed it and now you need to modify it. But the links panel is really helpful if you're trying to track down where something is, because it'll also give you details. If I just make this bigger so we can see this, it'll see like, hey, the DPI is not great on this. It's only 96. It should really be 300 for print. Also, the color space is RGB. You really want to open all your photos in Photoshop and make them CMYK. And I can send you how to do that and how to check that, because really everything for print ideally is CMYK 300 DPI at the size you plan to use it. Because I was doing this quickly, I didn't make that change, but that's something you'll want to do before you send it to print. It'll even tell you where it is, when it was placed, all the details about the photo. So I find the links panel when I'm working on a document like this really important. Animation's another one for what you're doing you don't need to really worry about. Okay, it's more for if you were making a presentation using this. The other reason I like typography is I find this control panel is a little more intuitive than the default one. So if I'm in the text tool, most of the things I need are going to be across the top. There's also things down here that might be useful, but usually your question to how do I is answered up here. And obviously when you roll over it, it'll tell you, like this should tell you that it is all caps. Of course, my computer's not cooperating today, but it should roll over. When you roll over, it should tell you what it is in terms of like what does it do. But this will give you most things. You'll notice here you can alternate between character and paragraph panels, which are the same as the ones over here. And that here in the character, you do have some paragraph options too. But it'll change with every tool. So you'll notice when I go back to the selection tool, I get selection properties. All right, so that's how your template works, like a really broad overview. I'll send you separate videos on how to do the basic things. And if you have any questions, we can talk about it. I'll also try to set up an index to show you how that works, because you can, not only can you paginate across all the documents, you can index. So like you need to do all the names in the back so students can find themselves. I can show you how to set up an index file, but this should get you started. And I'll send you some other videos on specific skill sets that you'll need to use, but really this should make it possible for you to get going. All the documents are in place, everything's ready to go. I'll reopen my book file here that I lost when I was messing around. Here we go. Because when I moved to a different workspace, it undocked it for me. So you can just do what I did to dock stuff, and then you always have it here. What I'd recommend is putting it on, like if you have a server, put it on that. Other words, remember like who has what file and who's doing what with it, so that you always have the main files that go to this in here. But if you have any questions specific to working with a book file, I'm happy to answer them for you, but this should definitely give you enough to get started.